I wonder how much, like, because I think, like, as sports cards continues to grow, um, how much will like cultural relevance really matter in a sense, and like success outside of the particular sport? Because that's something else
Interesting
I
point.
heard quite a bit. Was like, oh, let me say buy Damian Lillard because culturally relevant or whatever. Because he has this whole rap thing that he does, and he may be into interesting things in the future after retirement. Um, because I don't know, like there's some people like Akeem Olajuwon who's been very successful, like in real estate, for example. And I don't know if people would really like take that into account. David Robinson has been very successful in like business ventures as well out after retirement. I don't know if they're going to take that into account. Like I guess I was going to say, like your Kobe's and your LeBrons. Obviously, unfortunately, Kobe passed away, but like with like LeBron and people like that, and like Michael Jordan, they're going to continue on a legacy where you may know them outside of basketball as well. So yeah.
There was somebody who made a comment in one of my videos one time that was talking about how in this day and age, because of social media, there is the potential for certain players to remain in like the psychological kind of relevance in people's minds for longer term, just because it is easier now to feel like a deeper sense of connection almost with players, because you're connected with who they are, like with players back in the 90s and before social media, like you were connected to their play on the court and only their play on the court. You didn't really have much sense outside of that, so it may be a little bit, if you were a super fan of something of certain players, you would like I knew just a little bit, like I'd read a little bit like when I was growing up about Grant Hill and some of the things he did off court, and I was like, oh, that's cool, like Grant Hill's cool. So that it did in a certain degree put him a little bit higher in my own mind as far as like somebody that I respected as a human being. But nowadays I do wonder, like people are more out there, you can see what their lives are like. You can see, I was watching a random YouTube video that was like these like showing like houses, like people Devin Booker gave a tour of his house and showed like the reasons behind, so it's like you can hear him talking, you can get to know who he is a little bit. So there is something that could stay in people's mind a little bit longer when you know somebody in other contexts. But I don't know, but when it comes, but I don't know, because when it comes to sports cards though, it still seems like the criteria of things that keep long-term relevance always just gets really, really narrow over time. So it seems like those things can help for like the medium term maybe, but even for the long term, I feel like some of that kind of stuff might not matter that much, eventually, maybe for a period of time, but not forever.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I guess things change, and I guess things change per era too. Just because I'm if card collecting was like as big as it is now, someone like Wilt Chamberlain would have been probably, I don't know, like Wilt Chamberlain been like vastly more expensive and more popular over Bill Russell.
It's hard to say.
It's very, very hard to say. I know for like the whole prospecting thing for football is way worse. Just because in the last, we'll say 98 to 2010, it seems like there's only like two people that people care about. It's Tom Brady and then Peyton Manning, which I guess people consider the second best quarterback ever. But it seems like a lot of people are surprised with like how cheap like Peyton Manning is compared to even like quarterbacks who are playing now. And then there are other guys who, maybe in the all-time top 10 all-time quarterbacks list, maybe you can argue Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger, but people don't seem to really, it's like, oh, his cards are going down. Think about adding him, or even either investing or collecting, and people are kind of like, there are a few people, if you're like from New Orleans or you're like from Pittsburgh, yeah, but outside of that, people are kind of like, nah. So
Yeah.
I'm also interested because it's just like people are going crazy. Well, Patrick Mahomes is starting to like decrease now, but you know, there's just too many there's like at least 15 quarterbacks, and probably 5 to 10 of them they think are going to be like long term or whatever. And it's just really interesting to see.
Yeah, and probably very few of them will. And football's tough, you know, because football, like for long term, it seems like at least up till this point, quarterbacks are the only thing that matters, which is really unfortunate, you know, because I feel like it narrows down, it makes it less interesting to me to think about collecting football or to do much with. I don't do that much with football, to be honest, because you know. The quarterback is one guy on that team, and of course he's kind of like the face of the team or whatever, but there's so many other players. You know, I look at like I look at somebody like Jonathan Taylor or something. Like he's an excellent player, you know, like a really good, and there's other you know, young players who are wide receivers or running backs, or you know, a different skills positions that are really excellent. And maybe in the short term or even the medium term, if you really know your football well, maybe you can find some spaces, you know, and find some opportunities for a little bit of like little things here and there. But generally, it seems like it's just quarterbacks that people focus on. I don't know. To me, that's really boring. It's just it's not enough. There's not enough. I don't know. Not enough different things to consider when considering the football card market. To me, and I know some people really love the football card market. But for me, it just feels so narrow.
Yeah. I also kind of worry a little bit about baseball, like long term. Just because the popularity is waning more and more in the United States. It's just less younger people are getting into it. And it's not that big internationally either. It's safer, but I think even with a lot of vintage stuff, I don't even think long term most of that stuff is really gonna hold its weight. I think some people maybe like the Jackie Robins, Hank Aaron's. I think a few, if they're connected to something like civil rights or something like that.
Cultural icons.
Yeah, cultural icons in that way, not necessarily like pop culture, because they're like, I guess there's cool. Like more meaning to like what they stand for.